wouldn't be so obvious now, considering the things I'm into or the stuff I post on social media. But there was actually a time when I engaged in what my present self would consider fascist activity. Not at the level of the Hitler Youth, but a toned down, less genocidal, but nevertheless just as macho version. Now, this little prepubescent foray of mine into fascism was called the Boy Scouts. Now, in my early elementary years, I was a painfully shy and quiet boy. I was more into books, anime, keeping to myself than I was into whatever games the other kids on the playground were into. And then I hit grade 5 and I felt this urge telling me that maybe I should try something different, something new. Not be so much of a nerd anymore because high school was just around the corner. Now, in our school, there was this little brigade called the Green Bar Council, which was basically this little troop or unit consisting of scout leaders from the elementary years. So I thought maybe I could join them in the hopes of upping my coolness. And so that year I signed up as a tenderfoot scout because in order to qualify for the Green Bar, you had to have at least 1 year of regular scouting experience. Obviously, it was very different from what I was used to. On our first meeting, we were told to assemble ourselves by height under just a few seconds. We were still in our school uniforms. It was a hot Friday afternoon, and we even did some jumping jacks because we couldn't assemble in the time given to us. Over time, we learned other things as well, such as how to march while in formation, how to wear our caps and neckerchiefs properly, how to salute and address superior officers, and also how to tie knots, which is something I've never learned. Fast forward to the end of the school year, and I signed up for Green Bar training that summer. Now, what we experienced in the past year was comparably easier to what we underwent in those 2 to 3 weeks of the summer. We did more push-ups, more jumping jacks, and we even had these little blue notebooks bought with our parents' hard-earned money, frequently snatched or attempted to be snatched from us by our trainers for no apparent reason. These little blue notebooks would be returned to us by the end of the day, but in obviously much worse condition. We also weren't allowed to talk about any of these things outside the training. What happens in the training stays in the training. Our trainers constantly reminded us, maybe because they were afraid that what they were subjecting us to would be seen as something tantamount to hazing, forcing us to do physically strenuous activities, ridiculing us, inching us out so that only the strongest among us would make it into their ranks. Eventually, I survived, as did many of my fellow trainees, and I was a Green Bar in my last year of elementary. I was still shy and quiet, but I at least had a little more confidence now, knowing that I occupied some type of leadership position. And because a lot of Green Bars went on to become scout leaders in high school through the Leaders Council or the LC, I thought maybe I could do that too. So in my freshman year of high school, I did another round of scouting, this time mandatory for all students, and I signed up for LC training that summer. Now, this summer turned out to be more brutal than the training of 2 years prior. We did more push-ups, more jumping jacks, jogging and duck walks around an open area for an unspecified number of times. I even remember we had this fellow trainee of ours who was asthmatic. He had trouble breathing after all these grueling calisthenics, which we did on a daily basis. Of course, there were more notebook snatches, more ridiculing, more of that what happens in the training stays in the training rhetoric from our trainers. This time I only lasted a week. I didn't show up for the second week, and I felt really bad about that. Scouting was still mandatory in my second year of high school, but my heart just wasn't really in it anymore. And reverting to my painfully shy and quiet self, I found myself avoiding our trainers from the higher years and my co-trainees who went on to become LCs. I thought they saw me as weak, an embarrassment, a quitter, things like that. It was only a little over a decade later when I saw all these right-wing movements gain steam all across the world, including in my own country, that I realized that the problem wasn't with me per se, but with a system or a culture that prizes strength, obedience, discipline, over more humane values such as compassion, concern, and understanding. When I heard that the American chapter of the Boy Scouts had filed for bankruptcy earlier this year, after facing a slew of sexual abuse cases involving some of its leaders, I took that as a sign that maybe this organization is having trouble finding some relevance in a world that's slowly but surely unlearning many of its well entrenched macho ways. And I feel good knowing that kids down the line won't have to experience the same things I did. After all, there are many other ways you can learn how to tie knots and go camping without having to worry about someone yell in your face or order you to do push ups for the slightest infraction. I imagine similar things happen too, though on a much worse scale, in other Darwinian institutions such as fraternities, the police, and the military. And I hope a day eventually does come when organizations like these will be a thing of the past, and people can become members of orgs of their choosing without being forced to do degrading, humiliating, physically exhausting things that remold them in a very macho sort of way. Thank you.